Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to. Oh my gosh, I keep changing the name of this class. It's supposed to be called Cosmic Blueprints. I called it before Cosmic Blueprints, and it's called Secrets of the Night Sky, which is wrong. I actually put together this series of classes years ago, and I called it back then Secrets of the Night Sky. I didn't like that name because it's just too vague, and I like the idea of Cosmic Blueprints because really. When we look at the universe, when we look at our solar system, right? I see precision. I see something that is a perfect scale, like a watch, right? Every single dial working in unison with the other piece to help us get an instrument that allows us to measure time. Okay, there are more sheets right over there at the tip of the table. When I think of the stars themselves, their alignment isn't accidental. It is specific, it is perfect, it is unique. And each particular star and its rising, meaning when we see in the night sky, has an impact on us. Like an example I gave last week was the moon, right? We said that the word lunatic comes from the word lunar, or the luna is the moon. And the moon has a powerful sway on all bodies of water on the earth. And since your bodies are made up of over 80% of water, your brain closer to 90-something% water, when that pressure comes down, it impacts you. Okay? So there is something about the scale of the universe itself, the way it moves and marches, it impacts us. To a point where it even influences us, it influences our nature. So the month that we're in right now, we're talking about the month of Av, which is the month of Leo, the lion, right? And we're talking about like how that month, what that mazal is. And we see these themes throughout the Parshat, the Torah itself, the Chachamim, that remember that they were experts in the night sky. The ancient world, the ancient people did not have TVs at home, okay? They spent their nights looking out at the stars and finding patterns, as many patterns as they can, okay? And the pattern of the month of Av is the pattern of stars that create the lion, okay? A powerful lion. Now, the month of Av for Jews is always a difficult time, even though for us right now, we're in the month of Adar, and we say, Mishnichnas Adar Marbim Be'simcha. When the month of Av comes in, the Gemara says, Mishnichnas Av Mema'atin Be'simcha. We lessen our joy. It doesn't say that we stop being happy. It doesn't say that, we become depressed. It just means that we cut back on our expression of joy in the month of Av. Okay. So let's look at the Arizal. The Arizal says, number one, that the month of Av was formed by the letter Tet. Its nature is hearing. Its sign is the lion, and its tribe is Shimon, or Simon. The letters Het and Tet, which spell the word Chet, sin, which symbolize the period of Tammuz and Av, point to this being the time of transgression. The letters Chet and Tet are not found within the names of the patriarchs Yaakov's 12 sons, indication that their souls are pure. Chet are the two letters that are often, translated as sin. But in Judaism, if you actually look what a chet means missing the mark, right? We often think that when we do something bad, we're evil. I sinned, and therefore I should be punished. But in reality, sinning is not aligning yourself to true north. Chet is doing something that doesn't allow you to express your unique mission in this world. Each person is born with a specific set of circumstances that are uniquely theirs. For example, your parents, only your parents could have given birth to you. No other set of parents, no other time in history, no other set of circumstances, the financial, socioeconomic circumstances, that was uniquely yours. The geography, where you were born, the time, the place, all that is unique because all those things were measured precisely to allow you to have the perfect amount of counterweight so that you can choose to become something more. If you were born at any time in history, no challenge. No challenge means you'd be perfect. The only time in the world where your soul could have come down to this earth is the times when you were born. And you could only be challenged in the world of internet, in the world of television, in the world of media, in the world of the insanity that you and I see unfolding around us today. These are the challenging times that you and I need to push ourselves. It's like, I'm not a big quoter of, actors or actresses, but when Gal Gadot has to get up on a stage and say things like, my name is Gal Gadot, I'm Israeli and I'm Jewish, and she has to repeat it 1,000 times to remind herself that she is a Jew first, right, is sad. Why? It's sad because you don't have to repeat it to yourselves. You should know it. It should be clear. Because if it's not clear to you, I promise you the world around you will remind you over and over again. Wherever we went as Jews, we lived in Italy, you lived in Spain, you lived in the Soviet Union, you lived in the Ukraine, you lived in South America, you lived in other parts of Europe, parts of the world. When the people saw you, they called you a Jew. Right? Why? Because where are we from? From Judea. That's where we come from. They always called us by the place that we come from. Right? If you're Canadian, you're from Canada. Spanish from Spain. Italian from Italy. What are we? Jews. Why? Because we're from Judea. Where's Judea? It's in Israel. Right? That's where we're from. But now that we're living in Israel, oh, those Jews, they're not from Judea. They're from Poland, and they're from Russia, and they're from Europe. Send them back. It's so convenient when it comes to hate. You see how easy hate distorts truth, right? So time is a distorter of truth also, okay? Now, I would say like this. I don't know if anyone's a Leo here, okay? Or if you have children that are Leos, or you're married to a Leo. Leo is a very strong month, okay? Leos are fire signs. We'll see more about the signs and how they express themselves. But when we go through the midot at the end, right, of Leo, you'll say like, that's not all me. And the answer is that's true. It might not all be you because you've already been influenced by your environment. So no one is ever a true expression of their zodiac. Why? Because your upbringing, the choices, the time, all of that skews the midot that are associated with that month. And therefore you adapt new traits, new behavior patterns. And your job is to be able to recognize the things that are uniquely you, that are an expression of your midot, and then ask yourselves which are the good parts that I need to double down on, and which are the bad parts that I need to remove. It says over here in Bamidbar, number 2, Tisat kol ha'edah v'yidnu et kolam v'yivku ha'am b'layla ha'hu. What are we talking about over there? We're talking about the Chet HaMaraglim. It was that night when the Jewish people cried for no reason. When that happened? In the month of Av, the 9th of Av. It's a fateful day where the spies came back with their negative report in the land of Israel. Right? What do we say the month, the special power of the month? The nature is what? Hearing. Yeah. What did the Jewish people listen to? The evil report, the negative report, the Lashon Hara that they came back with, which ended up causing the Jewish people to reach such a low level that they were stuck in the Midbar for another 40 years, where there was the only tikkun for that generation was to die in the Midbar itself. Now, people don't realize this, but the Midrash says that when that generation realized they weren't leaving, right, in order to maintain a high level of purity, because you were traveling around with the Mishkan, you were traveling around with the tabernacle and all of the services that the priests would do in this tabernacle, the Jewish people had to maintain a certain level of holiness. And it wasn't that simple to go ahead and take someone who was in a state of impurity and then move him into a state of purity. You needed a korban, you needed the red heifer, you needed a para aduma. It wasn't so complicated, it was complicated to get one. So the custom was that once this decree was stated that the Jewish people were going to die in the Midbar, every single night they slept in their own burial plots. They dug up a small little, because you couldn't touch the body. If you touched the body, you became impure. So to try to create a scenario where the Jewish people were always in this pure state, they created a reality where they were literally sleeping in their caskets, not knowing if they were waking up the next morning. And every single day, every single year, a group of people would end up just covering up their beds and leaving them in the sands that they slept in the night before. Right? Very powerful. This is the month of. This is the month that reminds us how one of the most important and the most powerful faculties that we have is the power of shmi'ah, of listening. Right? I often say the word shema. The Vilna Gaon says, if you look at the 3 letters, shin, mem, ayin, the word shema is shin on your lips, mem in your throat, and ayin. Shmi'ah, which means hearing, really means to gather, to internalize. You see this in the book of Malachim, where Shaul, it says V'yishma Shaul ta'am, and Shaul gathered the people. The word Shama, V'yishama, doesn't mean that he heard them; it means he gathered them. Why? And what is the correlation between listening, hearing, and gathering? Well, if you think about it, when I speak, There are sounds that have to come out of my mouth. My tongue breaks those sounds into letters and words. The sound waves have to bounce off the walls of this room. Those sounds have to enter into your ears. Your ears have to then bring that sound information to your brain. Your brain has to then go ahead and break it apart and turn it into meaningful words and sentences, and then you have to comprehend it, and then you have to apply it. A lot of things happen. It's an active gathering. Why is Shmiya so important? Did you ever hear the expression of active listening? You know what active listening means? Active listening means that we often, when we hear things, what do we want to do? We want to respond. The nature, you say something, oh, but what about this? What about that? I have one guy in my morning class, no matter what I say, he fact checks everything that I say, right? Google said this, and so, which is fine. It's not this morning, it's every day, which is fine. It doesn't always make it onto the recording, right? Which I don't mind. I like that. I'll tell you what I said. I said something like, that the largest body of water is not on the earth, it's in the air. And one of the largest rivers in the world is over South America, right? So he brings me an article. That's not true. It's really, there's more side that the distinction that I did not make for him was that I was thinking about fresh water, and he's thinking about salt water, and he's right. The largest body of salt water is in the ocean, but when it comes to fresh water, the largest body of fresh water is in the skies, which is a crazy thing to think about, right? That there's more drinking water floating around you, above you, than there is on the actual planet. Anyway, so in a nutshell, we fact check. I got fact checked, which is fine. I don't mind being fact checked, because ultimately, I want to be someone who's saying what is true. But an active listener would have listened to the entirety of my class, wrote down the note that he was curious about, and then fact checked me at the end of the class, not in the middle of my class. Why? Because if you're fact checking me in my class, and I again, anyone here, I want to be fact checked. I want to say the right things. I'm not perfect. I forget things. Things change. I remember reading an article many years ago that they did an experiment that there are particles that move faster than the speed of light. And at some point, I got into a conversation with someone. I said, "Well, that's not true. We know that there are things faster than the speed of light." Now, that statement was true in 2016, but it's not true anymore in 2018. So things change also, which is fine. But the point that I'm making is that an active listener is someone who says, let me absorb what's being said, and then I'll respond. I find this to be very difficult, especially in a relationship. I'm married, I have 6 children, and my wife wants to share things with me all the time, and it takes a lot of self-control on my part to not say anything. I just close my lips, and nod, and listen, and say yes, and then form an opinion and then share it at the end of that. Now, I'll say even more than that. Ready? If I was to break you up into small groups, partners of 2, and ask each of you to take the role as a speaker and the listener, okay? Well, 2 things would happen. First of all, I'd tell you the speaker has to speak for 2 minutes and share whatever they want for 2 minutes. The listener, which I think is the harder part, is not allowed to say anything. Just listen for 2 minutes to somebody else speak. And not only that, part of that exercise would be not allow your mind to drift and just be focused on what's being said. Because what ends up happening is when we say things, I say white elephant, everyone's got a white elephant in their head, right? Which is fine, that always happens. But then it's just, how do I get you back to the topic? So an active listener, someone who's developing strong listening skills, okay, is someone who just hears what is being said, absorbs it, digests it, and then waits for a response. That did not happen in the month of Av for the Jewish people. Oh, they're giants, we're not going to win, we're going to die. How can you do this? Crying right away. If they would have thought for a moment, right, like, people who are worried about markets crashing, right, they don't have a full understanding of what's happening in the stock market. They're panicking, they see red, it's bad. It's not bad. It's a buying opportunity, right? Every situation is an opportunity that you can grow from. Depends on how you look at it, depends on your experience, right? But the Jewish people, had they spent a little bit of time in being active listeners, the first thing they would have said is, who are you to tell us whether or not we can or cannot conquer the land of Israel? We got God on our side, right? We have God on our side. He just split the sea for us. He just brought manna from heaven. We just watched 10 of the most amazing plagues destroy one of the most powerful countries in the world. And you're worried about a bunch of people in the land of Israel? Who cares? But that's not what happened. They heard it and they cried. They were not in a space where they reacted, but no thinking. That's the month of Av. The power of the month of Av. Now, it's interesting. I often argue, and this is a Reuveni, this is not, I don't have a source for this yet, I have a suspicion, strong suspicion, that the summer months are the most profound months of spiritual growth. That's where spiritual growth happens in the summer months. Why? How do I know that? Because I know that God created a world where the physical world is an expression of things that are happening on a spiritual plane. Not an accident that the month of Nisan, right, the month of miracles, happens in the month of April, in the beginning of the spring, where things begin to bloom and awaken, right? Not an accident that Hanukkah happens in the month of Kislev, in the month of darkness, and we're bringing small elements of light into that world of darkness. These are not accidental things. These are very specific, just like the fine-tuning of a watch. These are very calculated things. And therefore, that we see how in the month of Hanukkah itself was a desecration and destruction of an oral tradition, a loss of the miraculous, a loss of a deeper spiritual connection, and we have to bring it back through our own things. The month of Av represents the peak of spiritual growth gone wrong. And it starts with Shivat Tammuz, we spoke about that last week, right? And it moves into the month of Av, into the 9th of Av. And that time, those 3 weeks, what we call the 3 weeks, is the darkest time of the year for Jewish people, right? Why? Because it's the potential to have the most amount of light. What would have happened on the 9th of Av if the Jewish people did not cry? What would have happened if they were active listeners and said, no, we're not buying this stuff. We believe. What would have happened? Moshe would have become Mashiach, and we would have gone to Eretz Yisrael, built the Beit Mikdash, and we'd have never left forever. Everything about our story as individuals and as a people, as a group, is interconnected. Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. We are all interconnected. And therefore, all of our stories and the pain and the suffering that we have is a reflection of this one day, 9th of Av. Painful day. What did they get wrong? Oh, they got a lot of things wrong. But specifically, they couldn't hear what was being said. They did not process it properly. And they cried that night. Midrash number 3 says that the misuse of the faculty of hearing is at the root of all tragedies that the Jews have suffered during the month of Av. Quoting the verse, and the children of Israel wept that night, referring to the night, the 9th of Av, that the spies of Moshe returned with the evil report concerning the land of Israel. That the unnecessary weeping of the Jews engaged in then brought about their having to weep in earnest during that time in that generation to come. They were lost. Ibid, next part of that Midrash. The tragedy of the 9th of Av, destruction of the 2 holy temples in Jerusalem, Babylon and Rome, are symbolized by the sign of the month, the Leo, the lion, which mercilessly rends its victims. Also, the name of the month, Av, is an acronym of the 2 nations that destroyed the Holy Temple. Aleph is for Edom, Rome, and the nation that destroyed the second temple, right, is the Bet, the Babylon, right? So Av is Edom, right, and Bet is Babylon. So you have the name itself. The name is hidden in the month itself. The name itself, number 5, says that the heavenly body that rules Leo is which body? The sun. The sun symbolizes the power of the signs for the nations of the world, reckon their calendar according to the solar year. By the way, this is why your solar midot, right, the Zodiac, is aligned with the solar calendar and not the lunar calendar. Because if you think about it, well, which one is it, my Hebrew birthday or is it my English birthday? And I say that your midot go by your English birthday, not your Hebrew birthday. Why? Because if you think about it, the constellations that we see have to do with the Earth revolving around the sun, not the moon revolving, not the Earth revolving, the moon revolving around the Earth. And therefore, the constellations have to do with where the Earth is in relative to the sun. And therefore, the midot are being channeled through that. Okay? Now, in the ancient world of Egypt, we spoke about this way before. The Egyptians believed that who was the supreme god? The sun. Ra, the sun god. And they said, Shum chadash tachat hashemesh. Nothing changed underneath the sun. Kind of like Shlomo Melech said. And that therefore, if you're a king forever. You're a slave, you're an abed, you're an ebed forever. Nothing changes, a caste system. And that's why the first mitzvah the Jewish people got in the month of Nisan was, HaChodesh Zelachem. You have the power of the moon, because the moon has new cycles. You could break out of the solar cycle. And this is why the Gemara says, we say that, En Mazal Yisrael. The Jewish people are not bound by the mazalot. You can break out of it. Now the question you should be asking me is, Rabbi, you just told me a few minutes ago about 17 minutes ago, you told me when the month of Adar comes in, right, you're supposed to increase your joy. And then you told me when the month of Av comes in, you're supposed to decrease your joy. And if you look further, the rabbis will tell you that if you have a court case in the month of Av, don't take it. It's a bad month, bad signs, don't do it. But in the month of Adar is a better month. So, well, which one is it? Is it mazal or no mazal? Does the month have the sign or not have the sign? And the answer is a little bit of both, right? So what's interesting is Harambam, Maimonides, one of my favorite guys, he says that he does not mention anything about the month of Adar being a time to go to court. But he does mention to be more careful in the month of Av, and the question is why? He himself was an intellectual, a philosopher. He was a cerebral kind of guy, not a wooji into the spiritual stuff. Well, why does he even say that? And the answer is because to be cautious, it's never too bad to be too cautious. If there is something that influences the month itself, which I believe there is an influence in the month, right? Take your precautions.
Prevention better than cure.
That's right. Oh, preventions are always better than what? Than a cure, you said?
Cure.
Yeah, so true. Right? So you have an opportunity to go ahead and do a preventative, take it. Now, even so, we know that's what's unique about the month I'm in right now, Av, Adar, is that it has a power of flipping things. It's a flipping month. The nature of the month, we said, is that it was actually supposed to be the month that's connected to Esav, and they lost it. They lost the month of Av, right? They lost the month of Kislev. Those became our months, okay? And has a power of flipping. This month has a power of changing things, which is why I really want Israel to destroy Iran over Purim. That'll just make the story like a better story for me. And I'm hoping that happens soon, Bezrat Hashem, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so with the flipping, it's going to happen soon. But the month of Leo is symbolic of the sun. That's what the Bnei Chazak says as follows. He says that it's the power of the signs. For the nations of the world reckon their calendar according to the solar system. Also, the first day of the week, Sunday, is ruled by the sun, right? As evidenced by the name of that day. And the fact that the nations of the world established their day rest on that day, he's talking about the Christians, the solar symbolism is still operative. The elements of this month, fire also points to the power of the sun, because we know today that the sun isn't a flashlight. It's a massive, big ball. Who said it the best from Timon in The Lion King? It's a great, big ball of gas burning in the sky, right? That's what it is. It's just a massive, big gas ball of hydrogen that's exploding in the sky. It's a nuclear reactor exploding 90 million miles away. Did you know that it takes 7 minutes for the light of the sun to hit the earth? And therefore, if the sun was gone right now, it would take you 7 minutes to figure it out. Anyway, that's how far it is. Okay, fine. So the sun is this powerful sun in the sky, and it has an impact and influence on us as well. He said there are two negative aspects of this month. Exemplified by the transgression of the spies of the sin of pride, which our sages say is rooted in the element of fire. Remember, fire, the 4 elements are also tied into the mazal as well, right? Fire, water, earth, and wind. Okay, and therefore Leo we know as a fire month. All my children, by the way, are fire signs. Very sure they're either all Leo or Aries. Everyone in my family is Leo, very dominant, strong personalities, except for me. I'm air. I tell them that without me, no fire. Anyways, but they bully me. Anyway, fine. So there are two negative aspects of the month, except by the transgression of the sin, which is rooted in the element of fire. The ambition to rule at all costs is symbolized by the sign of the month, lion, the king of the beasts. These attributes influenced by the sensitivities of the spies who wanted to maintain their position as princes in the desert, that caused them to convey their false reports about the land. This, in conjunction with the essential nature of the month, hearing, on the part of the people of Israel who accepted the spies' report, thereby turned this month into a time of mourning and tribulation in the course of their history. Because fire is passionate and fiery and it runs around, right? You gotta be careful. Because when you're in that passionate state, you can make, unfortunately, a lot of mistakes. There's a certain element of pride. We know that one of the reasons why these tribal leaders gave this report is because they were unwilling to surrender their power. Because when they came to the land of Israel, there would be no more tribal leaders. They would just surrender to a king. They didn't want to give up their power, and therefore they used the power of speech to manipulate the people not to want to go in. And that was the beginning of their destruction, that fiery nature of the month of Av, associated with their as leadership together. That pride is what became the beginning of their ends. The Shem Shmuel qualifies this pride of irrational self-assurance, found themselves in the character of the prince of the tribe of the month, which is Shimon. By the way, where does the word Shimon come from? Shmi'ah, to listen. Okay, on the plains of Moab, just prior to the Jews crossing the border of Israel, Zimri, prince of Shimon, publicly rebelled against the authorities of Moses and the Torah at the instigation of Cozbi, the daughter of the Midianite prince. Her words aroused the feelings of self-importance, and as a result, the negative influence of the shameful behavior caused the death of many of its tribesmen. This was due, on their part, to the uncritical acceptance of what they heard. Again, a breakdown of not having a critical ear, not being able to hear something with a discerning ear, just accepting it and making mistakes. How often are you guilty of reading something on the internet, thinking it's true, and then repeating it only to find out it's not true? Right? We're all guilty of that, right? And therefore, part of the month of Leo is there to teach us, hey, if you're truly someone who's thinking, if you're truly someone who's listening, then know that your responsibility is to filter out what you're hearing. Someone says to you something that's not true. You hear Lashon Hara. How do I know that's true? You got to push back. You're not a vessel that just receives. You're supposed to be a critical vessel that knows when to throw things out. Okay, but the month of Leo, with its pride and its passion, often makes these mistakes. Okay, Pasuk says, "Hine yad Hashem hoyav miknecha." Right? God, the hand of God, will strike the livestock of the field. So what does he say? The Pri Tzaddik says the word hoya also carries with the connotation of marriage rights. The contrast of meaning tells us that all of the month of Av carries with it the connection of turn the page, judgment now. In the future, the month will turn to a period of joy and gladness and celebration in the marriage between God and the Jewish people. Which means that when we start actually listening to one another, right, we end up changing our future. And the month of Av switches from being a month of negative traits into one of added joy, right? Hopefully Mashiach, hopefully all kinds of amazing things for the Jewish people. But if we can't do it on an individual level, if we're all guilty of reading something and repeating it without having a discerning ear, a discerning mind, that means we're already broken. And if we're broken as vessels and we are unable to fix this power of being an active listener, why is active listening so important? What does it really do? You know what it does? When I stop and I hear you, I create rapport with you. I show you that I care about you. I show you that I'm interested in you. I value what you have to say, right? When I share afterwards, you're hopefully an active listener as well, and you're going to value what I have to say. There's no judgment. It's two friends sharing information with one another, caring and loving one another. But if you dismiss me and you cut me off and you're not interested and you're belittling and you destroy it, it's gone. And what happens? My ego kicks in. And then we be fighting. I'm going to get back at you. I'll show you. And a vicious negative cycle happens. The beginning of the end. Where does it start? Remember, every single city, okay, every single state, every single country is made up of people, right? Families, communities, individuals. And what happens on a personal level impacts your family. And what happens on a familial level impacts your community on the city, city on the state on the country, and the ripple effects keep going. How do we make that change? I make it with me. I want to be the catalyst of change. I tell people I'm working on active listening. I'm not perfect, but at the very least, I want to be someone who's able to hear somebody else. The month of Av, right? We know the temple was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred. What does baseless hatred mean? Does that mean if I have a good reason to hate, it's okay? This guy's crazy anyway. Right? No. Baseless hatred means that I'm no longer interested in even hearing your position. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't machshiv. I don't give any authority to anything you have to impart. Goodbye. Talk to the hand. I'm not interested. Right? And when we get ourselves to a place like that, my friends, is the beginning of the end. And it starts with something so small as just not being able to listen properly. Okay? And that's the month of Av. Number 10, okay, Otiot Rabbi Akiva. The double meaning of the month of Av reveals itself as well in the letters that gave this month its form from the letter Tet. In the negative aspect, it symbolizes Tit, lime pits, right? Death, whereas its positive aspect is the beginning of the word of Tov, good. So on the one hand, you have this negative aspect, and you have this positive aspect. The Gemara says as well, a person who sees the letter Tet in a dream may expect good fortune, for the passage states, and God saw the light was good, Tov. Okay, Tov. That's the first time the word Tet is being used in the Torah, and therefore the Tet always goes with that word. The first time you see a letter in the Torah, how it's being used, that letter is associated with that word. The first time you see the letter Tet in the beginning of a word is Tov. And therefore, the word tet represents good. And therefore, you see the dream, it's going to be good, all good. The Bnei Yisrael says as follows. He says that the essential nature of this month hearing is associated with the letter tet. In its indication that a positive aspect of one's proper use of hearing faculty may lead one to good works, whereas its misuse may lead one to tum'ah, impurity, and destruction. Therefore, the main form of that spiritual work of this month takes its purification in the realm of hearing and the proper association with the understanding heart, as stated in the verse, in the form of the divine name. Keep silent, collect yourselves, and hear. Hasheker Shema Yisrael Hayom. The first two letters, He and Vav, are in the opposite of their usual order in the divine name, and therefore denote the first 2 weeks of this month when the period of strongest judgment is upon us. The last two letters, Yod and He, although in the essential form of the name, they're the first two letters, still are in their proper order, and denote the last 2 weeks of the month, which regard a time of mercy and divine compassion. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam, shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. Now, so you see how a month can be split, right? Because the month itself of Av starts at the beginning, Rosh Chodesh Av, and then by the 15th of Av, you have Tu B'Av. What's Tu B'Av? It's the day of love, right? It's the day of love, right? That's the day we make shidduchim. It's the day that we bring people together because hopefully we're able to move out of that negative judgment where the sun is so strong. And now that the power of the sun is waning, there's still this power of interconnectivity in hearing people. At the core, a relationship can only be built through the act of hearing one another. That's how we communicate, how we speak, right? That's how you build your relationship. The more I could listen, the more I could hear you. The more I could be heard, you could be heard. The more that relationship grows in its love, right? That's what it is. So in the month itself, you have one side of the coin, which is negative, and the other, which is positive. We could flip it around. Okay, the day of bad tidings, the 9th of Av, is associated, according to Kabbalah, with the hollow of the thigh, the sciatic nerve, the place where the angel Esav wounded Yaakov, one of the 365 veins that correspond to the days of the year. Because this is where the angel that wrestled with our patriarch God wounded him, therefore, the 9th of Av is with the letter Tet, which has a numerical value of 9. The letter Tet, according to the Talmud of Baba Kama, is related to destruction and death. As in the verse in Isaiah, right? They swept him with destruction. So you have over here two different meanings expressed through this particular letter, and has to do with the beginning and the ends of the month. Okay, the double spelling of the letter Tet is 18, Chet, Chai. It depends on how you want to see it. Okay? Okay, right. Tzadok of Cohen says the birth of Mashiach happens when? On the 9th of Av. An occurrence that may happen in any generation. Maybe he was born already. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to be your kid or your grandkid. The science of astrology associates the sign of Leah with the birth of powerful world leaders and associate with the element of the month of fire and with its ruling heavenly body in the sun with the coming Mashiach. The sun will shine forth more brightly when God removes the protective layer around the sun and reveals its holy fire that will destroy the evil and heal the good. Right? Global warming is usually a sign of Mashiach coming. And maybe that's what we're seeing as the sun is getting warmer. Maybe this Midrash is talking about that it becomes so hot that the world has to go through some kind of growth. That the incubator, the sun incubates the earth, bakes the earth. It's like a cooking pot, right? It's like an oven. And then something about that, it reaching its new temperatures allows us to kind of reach new realities. The Zohar says that the winter months that corresponds to Av is Shvat. The common principle that binds them is revealed the 15th day of both months. Both days are rejoicing. During Av, this comes after the 2 weeks of mourning, corresponding to the first two letters of the month, combining God's divine name, He and Vav, in an inverse order. The 15th month of Av corresponds to the beginning of the second 2 weeks. Av, the letters Yud and He, and proceed according to their natural order, which reign, making it a day of joy. Okay, let's go through the signs. That was the Zohar. Leo is a fire sign, like Aries and Sagittarius. Fire signs are enthusiastic, energetic, and full of confidence. The element is fire. The ruling planet for that month is the sun. Positive traits. Leos are generally generous and warm-hearted, creative, enthusiastic, loving and loyal, confident and courageous. True? Yeah. Okay, negative traits. Arrogant and bossy. No, not really, right? Interfering and nosy, dogmatic and intolerant. Leo's pride is its greatest trait, okay? But it can be also their greatest downfall. They're gregarious and social. They love being the center of attention. They hate boredom and prefer bright and lively places. Even if they appear quiet, they are never true introverts. Their speech is commanding. They often take center stage in any discussion. They love to give advice, even if it's unsolicited. They enjoy teaching others how to live their lives, but may not always manage their own affairs very well. Leo's ego and need for respect. Okay, flattery works very well on them. They crave compliments. If their ego is wounded, they may act with rage. Their judgment can be clouded, but they have this very deep need for admiration. They may look down on others if they feel superior in intelligence. Okay, Leo is better than Aries at completing projects. How? They're more organized, more effective leaders. Their instructions are clear and direct. They don't waste time with grand, unrealistic ideas. They can be dramatic and theatrical, but they get things done. They command respect, but must learn humility. Leo in the workplace. Okay, so not cautious with money. Okay, often overspend on luxury. Can be extravagant. They like fine clothes, dining, and travel. They are natural gamblers. Okay, very generous. They enjoy giving to others out of pride rather than compassion, which is very different. Prefers to be in control, rarely borrows money or takes financial advice. Enjoys gossip, of course, that's the month. Not out of curiosity, but to stay informed, of course, and to be in control. Leo needs loyalty, admiration, and attention in relationships for men. Leo men are very protective, generous, but controlling. They love being adored and expect respect and devotion, will shower a partner with gifts and affection, becomes jealous if they feel neglected. That's true for all men, by the way, not just Leos. Okay. Strong, confident, and loves attention. The women enjoys luxury and being admired, needs appreciation from her partner, not easily tamed, resists being controlled. They did a study actually a couple of years ago, about a decade now. For every 9 selfies that are taken, they're taken by women. For every out of 10, 9 are women and 1 are men. And what does that teach me?
That women have more time to take selfies.
No. It teaches me that they both have the same time, really, because they're talking about teenagers, right? That women want to be seen more than men do. Right? And which is why, by the way, when a woman walks into the room, everyone notices her, both the men and the women. Right? The nature of the feminine is that it wants to be revealed, which is why there's such a deep lesson about modesty for women more so than men, right? A woman wants to be revealed, she wants to be seen. A man is not really interested in the same thing. He's looking for honor. It's different. Man wants to be respected. Women want to be heard and they want to be seen. Okay, which is part of the expression of the jewelry and the makeup, all that is all part of that. It's a deeper psychological thing, which we're not going to get into now, but that's part of it. Okay, and it expressed itself very nicely in Leo. Leo children are energetic, playful, but bossy, need encouragement, not suppression, must learn humility early on, thrives in responsibility, but dislikes mental tasks. Leo child will naturally try to boss others around. They must be taught fairness and humility. Leo as a parent, here you go. Loving, but demanding of respect. Will overlook children's faults due to their own warm nature, can be overindulgent with children, must set firm boundaries. You set the rules. Don't let the children boss you. You're the adult in the room. You have to make the rules. And you have to put your foot down and be strict. Like for me, if I'm going to say something to my children, I say it and I follow through 100%. If I'm not going to follow through, I don't say it. Once you say something and you don't follow through, you've destroyed your children's ability to respect you. You got to rebuild that again. And when I say something, my kids know if Abba says it, it's going to happen. So don't mess. Do what I say, otherwise you're going to get into trouble. All right, fine. Leo as a boss is commanding and confident, expects loyalty, takes credit for ideas, highly competitive, non-detail oriented. Okay, Leo in Jewish thought. Okay, we know that they have pride, gava. Therefore, they must learn humility. They have anger, kas. They need to control their fiery temper. Their nidivut, generosity, should give with sincerity, not out of admiration. Flattery, chanifa, must avoid increased praise. Tact, derech eretz, need to learn diplomacy and respect for others' feelings. We say in Perkei Avot, Ezu hagibor, hakovesh et yotzro. The strong person is one who could wrangle in his or her inclinations. The strength is expressed through your ability to control your drives. That's real strength. Kohelet says, everything there's a season and a time for For everything has purpose under the sun. Everything happens at the right time. Leo's mission is to balance confidence with humility and leadership with sensitivity. These are the great strengths: confidence, charisma, and generosity. Their biggest weakness is their ego and their stubbornness and their need for admiration. Okay, they are natural leaders, but must learn humility. Their generosity is admirable, but they should give without expectation of admiration. By working on patience and sensitivity, they can become truly great. Gemara says, "Lafum tzara agra," according to the pain is the reward, and the greater the pain, the greater the struggle, the greater the reward. Leo's fire, when it is channeled, is like a laser. I can do amazing things like a laser can, like precision cutting. But that's only when it goes through that refining process. If not, it's like a raging flame that can destroy and set everything on fire around them. Have a great week, everybody. We'll start our show next week. We'll keep going. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
I didn't hear you well, but I think that I heard you say that in the month of Av, it's not good to make any decision.
Yeah. The month of Av is a negative month, and therefore the Chachamim say that if you can avoid doing court cases or any kind of major expansion, business deals, don't do it.
So
Everything, even surgery. Surgeries, don't do anything in the month of Av. But unless medically you need to do it, then you do it, obviously.
when the month of Av starts?
Now, like this year, I don't have a calendar in front of me. I'll turn this off and I'll tell you right now.